and we'll talk about some of the problems you were having. So I put a couple of to-dos here. We're first going to, I'm going to change my routes here to go, I want my route, since my site is mostly about recipes, I'm going to have my route so that if they just go to my site name, it's going to, sorry, that wasn't recording, it's going to go to my recipes page. I want them to, when they first come to my site, I want them to see all of my recipes. So that is this recipes controller. And the default in a controller, if I just go to the default page, it's the, oh, I got style sheets up here. The index method is the one that gets called by default if I just go to /recipes. So this one goes and gets all of the recipes and displays them one at a time in an index, in a table here. So I want my route to go to that. So before we had page as the controller and recipes as the method. I want this to be the recipes controller and the index method. All right, so if I reload and go to the root here, it comes back and lists my recipes. But notice the top level page, that hasn't changed, but it's actually displaying to me the recipes page. So my navigation is the same thing. It goes to the recipes index page. All right, so that's one thing. So I can take my to-do out. Notice how nice that is as you're going through and creating these things to put some to-dos in to remember next time. RubyMine keeps track of that really good. Sorry, moving on. Sorry for the short interruption. We have another to-do I had here. I wanted to show you how to destroy a scaffolding, because very often, especially when you're starting out, you missed something, you missed a field, you forgot, you changed the type, was wrong. Sometimes it's easier, if you haven't run the migration yet, to just destroy the scaffolding, all the files that it was created, and start over again, right? So there are ways to destroy the scaffolding. Unfortunately, RubyMine does not have a way to do that. I've looked around. I cannot find a way to run this particular command inside of RubyMine. So we're going to have to go to the command line. So we're going to have to change directories from DOS into my projects. I've got to go to my demo 2. I've got to be inside the directory where my project is. And then I can type some Rails commands. So the command is Rails destroy scaffold, and then the name of the model that I used for the scaffolding. So in this case, it was exam. I'm not going to destroy my recipes. I created this one yesterday. I created exams. So I'm going to destroy exam. And it should go through and delete all the files that were created from that generator. It generated all the test files, the views, the model, the migration, all of that stuff. It will destroy that information. So that's the command, Rails destroy scaffold, and then the name of the model that you used in the generator command at the first place. So it's going to go through and take a little bit to destroy all those files. Yes?
So when, I didn't look this up, but it just pawned on me. The RubyMine, is it just running basically the same thing except for it's doing generate instead of destroy?
Yes.
So if you went in,
Yeah, it's doing, yeah, I could say Rails, generate, scaffold, exam.
Right, and it would rebuild it.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So that's a,
I know what RubyMine's doing if I ever have to do it without RubyMine.
right, that's what it's doing. That's exactly what it's doing. So if I look back on here, it said remove the migration, remove this exam.rb, removed my controller, all my views, and it took all of that away from my project. So now my exam stuff, all those extraneous files have been taken away from my site. So I could do the same thing on my recipes, but I don't want to destroy my data or the stuff I've done already, so I'm not going to do that. All right. All right, any questions on that? I think that you guys will likely do that several times because you forget something when you generate and I've done it myself. It's just easier to say, doggone it, I misspelled my column name. Well, it's easier if you haven't done anything just to wipe it out and redo it, because the generators, remember, generate all the views for me. A lot of places I would have to change that information. So it's just easier to start over. All right, so I fixed that. Now let's go a little bit into the validations, because some of you are chomping at the bit here. The assignment that I have is that you need to apply validation to the fields that I have in my in your products table is what you're going to create. So I'm going to run my console to get that started. The validations are all stored in the models file. If we look at the model for the recipe, this is my to-do, add some validations here. So this is what was written for me when I generated the scaffold. It added this @accessible method, which says that all of these values are able to be updated in the database from in what they call a mass assignment, which we'll talk about later. So we can ignore that for now. But I need to add some validations. So the validations are executed. They're checked to see if a field has specific data in it before it gets written to the database. That's when the validations are run. So when I create a new record, I'm filling out all the data in the form, and when I hit submit, that submit post goes through the routes file again, through the controller, to the create method in the controller, and that comes back to the model again and says, are these okay? Are the data that I put into this, are these valid? If they're valid, I'm going to go ahead and save that record to the database. So at that point, it creates the insert SQL command to insert all that data into the database. So this is where the validations are for Rails. And there are lots of them, and we could spend a week just on validations. But if I look at the guides, they're the guides.rubyonrails.org. There's a validation, active record validation and callbacks. That's what I'm looking at here. And this describes how the validations work, so I'd suggest you read that in detail. And it talks about when they happen. So when I create a new record is when the validations are called. So let's put one of the validations we have is to see if it's even has something in it. We don't want to store a blank record in our database, right? So there's a method called validates presence of, and RubyMine fills that out for me. And I pass it the name of the column that I want to force to be required to have something in it. All right, so I'm going to make it my name as the only one that's required at this point. Okay? So let's look at my, did my console not get run?
I don't think you ever turned it on.
Didn't
On
run.
the server, but you never turned it on.
Ah, oh, there it is. Okay, so once this comes up, I'm going to create a record like we did before in the console and see what comes out. Let this come up. Come on. Any questions so far? Okay. So here we are in the console. I do my little 2 + 2 so I know that it's actually loaded. And I can say I want to create a new product, and mine is going to be a recipe. .create, so that's the class name of my model. .create, and I'm going to pass it some information like, let's say, nothing. Okay? And so it created me a record without an ID and all of this information because I have this validation in place. So I can say a.errors, come on. There we go. So these are the errors that were generated for me. And here is for the messages that this is going to actually get displayed on the view and things. Remember the flash that we talked about last week? The name, it says, cannot be blank. That's one error because I have this one validation in my model. So it wouldn't allow the record to be created. So I can't save it. I can't do an a.save. It comes back and it fails. It says false. I cannot save it because your name doesn't have anything in it. So if I fix this and I do a create and I give it a name like Dave's cheesecake, then it creates it, and you notice that it gave me an ID this time. That means it actually created the data in the database. It did the insert, everything was fine, and if I look at my a.errors again, a.errors, I can't spell errors, there should not be any errors at the end. See, the messages is empty. So all of the data was filled out, even though some of these are nil, my ingredients are nil, because I don't have any validations on that, it says that's fine. I don't care. Those are not required. So I have a nil value in that row in my database. Everybody understand that so far? Okay. So now let's look at it, how it looks like if I were to go straight to the, where's my, here we go. If I go straight to my web page here, and I try to create a new recipe. So right now, if I don't put a name in here and I just submit this, it's as if the name was blank, and it comes back and says, oh, you can't do that. One error prohibited this from being saved, and it says the name can't be blank. Isn't that sweet? That's cool stuff. You know how hard that was in the playing around with the flash and determining if it was empty? It's all doing that for me based on that one line of code this validates presence of. So I can say if I want the ingredients to be true as well, or to have something in it, I just list out all of the fields that I want to be required. So if I try to submit this without both of them, it says I got 2 errors now. I've got my name and my ingredients are both blank. Sweet, eh? I can say my made by can't be there, it has to be there. And so now all 3 of those text boxes, input boxes, are required. Now, I can also do, if I look back at my guides, if I look at the guides, there are all kinds of validations. We can validate that we have an associated key. We'll talk about that later. That's like a foreign key validation. We can validate, we can confirm that, for instance, you're logging in and you've all registered for a site and it says email and rewrite your email, and they compare those 2 fields to make sure they're the same, and this does that automatically for me. Exclusion, we can do regular expressions. This is a regular expression that it has to match this regular expression. So whatever comes into this legacy code field, it has to match this regular expression. What does this look like? You guys remember your regular expressions? Beginning of string, followed by a lowercase a through z, uppercase a through z, one or more times, followed by the end of the string. So that means it can't have any spaces in it, for instance, or punctuation or things like that. So this lets me validate with a specific regular expression. Very nice. Includes, this says it has to be one of these three items. And this %W makes an array of all of these words here. So that means if size comes in, it can't be medium large. It's got to be a small or a medium or a large. All right. Length, that if we have a specific length, like password is one that's very common, I can add this parameter that says the password field has to have a length of a range, an in this range 6 through 20. So it has to be at least 6 characters and at most 20 characters. So the length is one. Numericality is one that we're going to do, and this tells you what regular expression it uses for you. Start of string, a plus or a minus character, 0 or more times with that question mark modifier, followed by any digit 1 or more times, followed by a z. So that means this one is if it's only an integer. That means it will not accept a float in this case. So let's do this in numericality on my serves. Okay, so validates numericality of RubyMine fills it out for me on the serves column, and I want to say that it's an integer, only integer is going to be true. Okay, so I only want to have integers in my serves column in my database. So let's go look at that. Try to put something in my serves of a string, and I create my recipe. Now I've got 4 errors. Serves is not a number. So let's try some more. We'll put 10.0. Must be an integer.
Oh, it actually figures that out.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Isn't that nice? So if I put 10 by itself, that's an integer. And it says, so that's okay. Now I only have my other 3 required errors here. So once I solve that error, it displays the page. Everything is sticky, like you guys had to do for the last assignment, which makes it nice. But then it displays all the errors that you had, so they fill them out. If you keep making errors, it'll finally, once you've satisfied all the errors, it will finally post and create the record in the database. So if I let's go back to that numericality of, and take off this only integer. All right, and see what happens here. So if I post this with a string again, it still has to be a number. If I post it with, it serves 8.5 people, that's going to be valid because it's just a number. We're not forcing it to be an integer. Isn't that nice?
Wouldn't it still cut it off in the database?
Pardon me?
Wouldn't it still cut it off in the database?
Probably. Depends on the field, but we want to try to make our data as clean as possible. So we've got numericality of, let's see what else we got. Uniqueness. Okay, so uniqueness of, which is very good. Uniqueness looks and makes a query in the database to make sure that that particular field is unique that we don't want duplicates of that. So that would be really useful, for instance, in the login name, right? But let's add it to uniqueness of on our name. Okay. So in our name, I have Dave's ribs, I think, right? Let's go back and look, see what I got. So this is my Dave's cheesecake that I created in the console. Notice all of these are nil, so that's not good. But I have mac and cheese. So let's go and try to create a mac and cheese name. Mac and cheese. I must have had Dave's mac and cheese. Hence the yeah, right. All right, it says name has already been taken. So it knows, it did a query in the database, found that that was already taken as that field, so it won't let you do it again. And so that keeps you from having multiple records that are the same. Cool stuff. This is just so cool. You guys don't appreciate it. Uniqueness validates with, that's the validates with a particular regular expression. These are some options. We can allow nil to be okay, allow something to be blank. We can change messages. We can only validate on certain actions, so we won't get into that right now. So those are the validations.
Validate that it's like in an estimate form,
I don't. You'd have to do the format, right? You'd have to do validate formats of, and what was it? Cost, maybe, would have to be with a regular expression. Yes. It doesn't have that in the guide, so this regular expression, it validates this field against this regular expression. So you could do a float that way. Okay? Actually, by default, if this without the integer, numericality of, will validate that it's a number, whether it's a floating point number or not.
Right, but if you wanted to make sure that it was a floating point number.
Well, how can I tell in text that it's a floating point number? It's got to have numbers with a period in it, right? You want to force them to put a period in it?
Yep.
Okay, so you'd have to type it yourself.
You'd have to build the expression.
Yeah, with the period in it, yeah.
Okay.
I'd just make it
You could force it to just be, and then it would create 0 if it couldn't find anything. Yeah. All right, any questions on this validation? So let's look back at the controller. Let's see, no. Yeah, did I fix my to-do? I did, look at that. So I can take away my to-do. To-do is gone. Isn't that sweet? And let's look at the, let's start, let's see, what was I going to, all right, some of you had questions about the delete not working, and that is on the index page. So if I go back and try to delete this particular, make this smaller, try to destroy, let's destroy my cheesecake. If you don't see this screen pop up, that means you have some JavaScript error. And what happened was a lot of you chose a template that had the JavaScript jQuery in it. And so what you did was you copied the jQuery into the JavaScript folder here, and you're using an older version of jQuery, and that is most likely the problem. So your best solution is, if you look at your JavaScript require here, it's already requiring jQuery and the jQuery UJS libraries. So just delete the jQuery file in here, and that should fix your problem with the delete. That took me a while this morning to figure that one out.
I have that file and mine works just fine.
It depends on the version of jQuery that you have.
Oh,
Yeah.
if you have the most current version of jQuery,
Yeah.
it'll work.
So you said jQuery file, which one?
In the, as well, see, I don't have one here. It's in the JavaScript folder. It'll say jQuery.js or jQuery_UJS.js. All right, so that was one issue. So the delete works fine.
So does Rails go out and grab jQuery?
It does not.
No, it stores it in a library. I don't remember exactly where, but it's inside of the project, and so you can. I think it's in the library file or something down here.
Does it do that when you do the creation
Nope,
of?
it's not there.
Does it copy the?
When you create a new Rails project, it does that.
It copies the most current version from.
No, it gets it from the Rails gem. It's inside the Rails gem. So-
Whatever version that Jim's holding
Right.
is whatever version you end up with.
Right, because they want to make sure that that version of Rails works with that version of JavaScript. So,
Got it. Okay.
do you know where it is actually, Phoenix, in the project? Yeah, I don't remember either. It's somewhere inside of this project. I think it's inside the gem of Rails itself. So
That's right.
that'd be
Just
something to,
Because I know, like, on some projects, you can either reference a local
yeah,
file,
or
you
get
can
it off the internet.
Reference, like, at Google
Yeah.
or from jQuery themselves, and then it will just go grab the most recent version of
Right.
something else, so you're not actually posting.
Right. That can cause problems because if they update that, then
Which is why with that,
Yeah.
I know people have done that, and then all of a sudden it
it breaks.
breaks.
Yeah, in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and then you're called.
Right,
Yeah,
so they have-
exactly right. Okay. Any other questions on all of this stuff? I want to then start going through this. Let's take the index page, for instance, and track how things are getting to the index page. So the scaffolding created these comments to let you know this is how people get to this page, to this method, this index method. So if I just go to my site/recipes, plural, it's going to say, oh, you must want to see all of the recipes, so it's going to run this index method. This index method, all it does is it makes a call to the database, like we did in the console, and give me what type of variable back? An array of recipe objects, and it's stored in an instance variable. Then at that point, it goes out and says, I need to respond because by default, the format is going to be HTML. We'll talk about JSON later. HTML. So it's going to load this file, this index.html.erb, providing it with this variable that I have here.
Why did they comment it out?
This one?
Yeah.
It's just a reference for you to show you where that is.
Oh.
It's
okay,
not,
So the format.html.
that's the actual method. Right. This is the file that it's going to load. Right. So, and in RubyMine, I can go click here, and it takes me right to that view, which is just so convenient. And this view has listing recipes as an H1. It's got this table here. And so if you don't like tables, you could convert this all into divs if you wanted to. And notice how we've got 3 extra blank headings here. That's for these 3 links that I have at the bottom. And then what it does, it takes this as an array, recipes.each. It loops through each element in the array, and we get a single recipe, a single record from the database. And we're just going through and laying it out in HTML with these values here. And so one of those ideas was maybe I had a thumbnail here instead. So I could make this an image tag. of the recipe.image. And unfortunately, in this case, my big old picture is going to be in there, and that kind of screws it up. But that's why you might have a thumbnail, a small little, 1-inch square image of this rib file that would show inline here.
Now, Dave.
Yep.
If you happen to want to, let's say, make that thumbnail clickable to go to the full-size image, would you put the link around the image tag, or would you put it in the product?
You'd put the link around the image tag. So let's play with some links like that, because let's take this out. This doesn't work with my stuff. I'll have to show you how to make an image tag. But let's make the name clickable. Okay? So I can add the link to method, and the text that I want to link to is the name. I want the name to display as the click text. And where I want it to go to is what? The show page. So what is the... Yeah, I could. There you go. It's just recipe. So I can just say recipe here, and that's the same thing. It will now create a link around the name. So it says Dave's Ribs, Dave's Mac and Cheese, Dave's Cheesecake. Clicking on Dave's Ribs takes me straight to Dave's Ribs. So I can edit that and make some of these things clickable. Yes?
Is there a way that you could make the link just go to the full-size image without opening up your database to the user on their end? Is there a way you could link it to just the large-sized image?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's just a link to and the image tag.
Without making an entire new page for that image.
Well, that requires JavaScript opening up in a light box or something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Or just an auto-generated page that's not in your view list, something that just shows up. It just shows the slash
Just,
and the image name.
yeah, you could. Sure.
You have to reference the image directly on the server.
Okay.
You wouldn't be routing it through any of the Rails routes files or anything like that. You would route it directly to the image.
Let's try that. I don't have a. I'd have to be more specific. I think I can't imagine ever doing this. So, I could do something like this. How about that? Actually, that's probably going to throw an error on my one that doesn't have a value there. Let's see if that works. There, like that. So that works. So the other thing I wanted to show, the cost before we quit today. This cost is a dollar amount, right? So this doesn't look very good. I want to actually show the dollar. There's a method to display that instead of just taking that decimal out of the database. There's a method called number to currency of the value that's in the database. And bada boom, bada bing, it puts the dollar sign up here. And if I use methods like that, then if I want to nationalize or localize this in another currency, I can set that in another file, and it would show a British pound or whatever the yeah.
But no, I mean, would it convert?
That doesn't do conversion. No. It just displays. It just takes the decimal value from the database and formats it in a nice way. That's all it does. All right, that's enough for today. Next week we'll go through some more of these views. I mean the rest of the methods in the controller. I want to go through. There's 7 of them in here, and I want to go through each one of them in detail to show you what's happening with those. All right, goodbye.